أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. The months of Muharram and Safar are dedicated for the mourning of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Is how it is apparent in the masjid. We will continue to mourn for Imam Hussain alayhi salam because in the remembrance of Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam there are lots of lessons. And some have calculated and compiled them 100 lessons. Imam Hussein's Ashura is an institution, is a university that teaches us how to be courageous, teaches us how to fight against oppression, teaches us how to be selfless, how to be kind, how to be merciful. So therefore there's much to learn about Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But the believer, especially the follower of Ali Muhammad, there's one thing for them that is very important, that they wish, that they make dua and prayer for. What is that? It's written, we just read it in Ziyarat Ashura. What is the absolute desire of one that is in love with Imam Hussain alayhi salam? That is how the Ziyarat says, فَأَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَنِي بِمَعْرِفَتِكُمْ وَمَعْرِفَةِ أَوْلِيَائِكُمْ وَرَزَقَنِي الْبَرَاءَةَ مِنْ أَعْدَائِكُمْ. So I beseech Allah, who has endued me with the honor of knowing you, and recognizing your loyalists, and who conferred upon me the separation of your enemies. And this line is what I want to say, أَنْ يَجْعَلَنِي مَعَكُمْ فِي الدُّنْيا وَالْآخِرَةِ, to make me, include me with you in this world and the hereafter. This is our dream, to be with Imam Hussain alayhi salam in the dunya and the akhirah. And I truly believe if you had the opportunity to meet Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to live with Imam Hussain alayhi salam, it doesn't matter how much money or resources, whatever you would have, you'd give it in order to see Imam Hussain, in order to live with him. And more importantly, to be with Imam Hussain alayhi salam in the hereafter, to always be with him, to see him. And that is a different type of seeing, brothers and sisters. Imam Hussain alayhi salam hasn't one appearance in this world, but in the hereafter, the barriers are removed. The barriers are removed and you see the reality of the Prophet and his family. You see the reality of why God has created us for. We see that. The problem though is, many people think that they'll always be with Imam Hussain in the hereafter. It's very possible that not everyone will be at that station. Or not everyone will be blessed to see Imam Hussain all the time. Maybe for some it might take years before they see Imam Hussain alayhi salam, because they're not at that level. So the dua we have and the prayer that we have is that we are with Imam Hussain in this world and with Imam Hussain in the hereafter. This is our dream. So how can we reach this? And this is tonight's discussion, is togetherness or ma'iyyat with Imam Hussain alayhi salam. How can I be with Imam Hussain in dunya and akhirah, in the world and the hereafter? How can I always be with him? This ziyarat said three things. Three ways to be with Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The first is that, and we'll talk about it, the first is to have ma'rifat of the family of the Prophet. It says, akramani bima'rifatikum. Endued me with the honor of recognizing you, knowing you, Ahlul Bayt. This, first it says this, then the knowing your friends, separation of your enemies, then togetherness. You see the relation, if those are paying attention? Three things. Knowing the Prophet and his family, you, Ahlul Bayt. Knowing your awliya, knowing your loyalists, your friends. And three, separation from the enemy. So the first step to be with Imam Hussain means to know Imam Hussain, to have ma'rifah. Ma'rifah means detailed knowledge. Ma'rifah, some say, it means an ingrained knowledge in the heart. Many people knew Imam Hussain, but they did not follow Imam Hussain. For example, Shimr, do you think Shimr, the killer, one of the killers of Imam Hussain, do you think he knew him or not? He fought alongside him in the Battle of Siffin. He knew him. Does, for example, Shaitan know, for example, the position of the Imams? So is knowledge sufficient? It's not sufficient, but it's needed. Knowledge is needed. Question, how can I know Imam Hussain? Where can I get knowledge to know Imam Hussain? How do you know Imam Hussain? Two types of knowledge. One is an intellectual knowledge, which I acquire and I read about. I either read about his life, I read about the fada'il and virtues that he has, that the Prophet said, or Imam Ali said, or other Imams said. Or, for example, I read his narrations and sayings. This is how you get to know someone. You read about them. And many people that are not even Muslim, they read about Imam Hussain, they fell in love with Imam Hussain, they followed him. For example, even those like Gandhi attributes his success and his revolution to Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam and his legacy that he had. Many of those that today are fighting against oppression, they know their leader of resistance is Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam. We see today many of those that Imam Hussain is their Imam because they read about him. They read about Ashura. They read about the sacrifice of Imam Hussain, the bravery of 72 versus 10,000, 30,000. In the afternoon of Ashura was 1 against 10,000, 30,000. How Hussain ibn Ali rode into waves of an army of people. So they learn about this. They learn about sacrifice. They read about it. And there's much to learn. In this part, which is the first type of ma'rifat of Imam Hussain, I want you to yourselves answer this question. Do you know Imam Hussain? That nice movement, you see, who is Hussain? Actually, I met a few nights ago, the creator of this, the starter, the one who bought the website, Who is Hussain. He started this. And he was telling me actually that this movement of Who is Hussain, he said, do you know who helped us introduce and who volunteered, for example, to introduce Who is Hussain, that today is one of the top leading organizations that introduces Imam Hussain throughout the world? When I was in New York, I went to Times Square. There was Who is Hussain, for example. I heard in the month of 10 days of Muharram at least, in the subway, right on top of the subway station in Times Square. So many people went and said, read it, Who is Hussain? They're interested. They went to the website. Who is Hussain? Who is Hussain? So if I ask you, and he told me this, he said that, do you know who helped us? He says, sometimes you think is the most pious of people. Sometimes you think is the one with the longest beard. He says a lot of them, maybe even, I'm not trying to, condone, for example, condone without being your proper hijab. But some of them, he says, don't have proper hijab. Some of them aren't the most religious of people. They just love Imam Hussain and they worked for him. And he says, this is how the youth are. And he's explaining to me that the difference between the youth in England, the youth in the US, is that most of the centers in England are led by the youth, but here most of the centers are led, a lot of them, by the older generation. And except obviously this mashallah, everyone's young, mashallah, alhamdulillah. So how do we know Imam Hussain? If I ask you, how do you have knowledge of him? Do you know him enough? How much did you study his life? How much did you go over, for example, what he said in the day of Ashura? So this is something I want you tonight, when we say it causes togetherness, one step is knowing your Imam, taking time to read about his life, taking time to see his sayings. There has been encyclopedias, mawsu'a, of the life of Imam Hussain, of whatever he said, whatever he did, these exist. The second type of knowledge is what? What other way can we know Imam Hussain alayhi salam? If besides the intellect, is the intellect the only way we know, or is there another way to know? What is the other way? The heart. Is that the heart? For example, the heart. How you know about yourself. Did you read a book about yourself? That you exist? Does everyone here agree that they're one? Everyone agrees that they're one, right? Even though, how many cells do we have? How many body parts do we have? How many bones do we have? How many muscles do we have? But we're one. We didn't read this in a book. We know it from the heart. We know it from within. It's knowledge within. When you are hungry, how do you know that? How do you know you're hungry? When the speech is taking for a long time, you know you're hungry? Or how do you know? Your stomach starts growling? But you do have the knowledge. When you're scared and you're afraid, how do you know? You read it? No. This is called knowledge by presence, or knowledge from the heart. There's another type of knowledge we have, but this type of knowledge, when you want to make it strong and you want to make it detailed, you don't read books necessarily, which is good. You have taqwa, you have piety, you work for it, you have worship, and you reach something. You reach Imam Hussain alayhi salam. You get ma'rifat of Imam Hussain. How many of you, for example, I'm assuming a lot of Persians are here, you kept going to the ziyarat of Imam Rida alayhi salam, kept going back and forth. How many trips have you done for Mashhad, mashallah? Do you know maybe Imam Rida a little bit more than the other Imams? Not book knowledge. Just by experience. Just by going and him helping you out in your life. Just by sitting in his holy shrine and knowing him more. That is how, because we truly believe that Imam is buried there. The Holy Spirit of the Imam is there. Not the Holy Spirit of Christianity. I'm saying the Holy Spirit of the Imam is there. The Spirit of the Imam is there. The body is there. The Spirit is there. Therefore, it's very interesting. Ziyarat of the Imam and visitation is as if you are really visiting them. Sometimes they don't want you to go. Sometimes they allow you to go. In the beginning of the ziyarat of Imam Rida, when you read, it says that, I say salam to you and you return my salam. That when you go to the Imams, you're saying assalamu alayka, for example, Ya Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam. There is a wa alaykum as-salam falani, wa alaykum as-salam. You don't hear it. So there is a connection. You're meeting them, visiting them. So you begin to develop a relationship that you don't even know with those Imams that you visit. That's why ziyarat is so important. You're getting to know Imams. And from here, when I get to think about the Imam of the age, Imam Mahdi, and I think about him, do you think one person that thinks about him 5-10 minutes a day knows Imam Mahdi better, or that person that never thinks of him whatsoever? So there's another type of knowledge, and I don't want to get into this. I gave series, and there's lots of books and lots of hadith about ma'rifatul imam bin nuraniyya, knowing the Imam through light, through nur. And Imam Ali alayhi salam tells Salman this ma'rif in Abu Dhar, the knowing Imam through the light, through the heart. For example, another one other way, just to make it clear, if the Imam of the age was here, AjAllah Ta'ala Faraj, was here, you met him and with dhuhur, would you feel differently? Would you somehow know it's him? How come when you go to a holy place like a ziyarat, you know it, you feel different? You feel it's somewhere different than this world. I feel it. Especially if those that have more of a pious heart, the more they have allowed their heart to see, because the narrations say the heart has ears. The heart sees. Narrations say the heart has eyes. So you can see. But the problem with us is that we have usually chosen the material over the spiritual, so this potential that we have inside of us is lost. We can't see, we're blind. Right? As the sins give you a blurry eye. It's like those that have glasses, they take their glasses, they can't really see anymore. Our sins have done this to the heart. But there are time periods where you work on yourself. Holy time periods, holy places where you actually start seeing, and it's sharp. So this is called ma'rifat imam bin nuraniyya, knowing the Imam with the heart. I'm not going to give, because this is not the topic of tonight's presentation, but I want to remember that, and I'm telling myself this, every choice that I make in my life, to worship God or not to worship God, when I choose not to worship God and relax and be more in the material, I weaken this type of nur and light that I have, because I made that option. I made that choice. But every time I chose to worship more, to be a better person, my heart begins to expand and open. And that's what Islam is. Inshirah, it's openness to Islam. Allah opens it to Islam, opens it to ma'rifat, opens it to understanding. I don't claim that I have this at all. This is just things that I review. Let's recite Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we said two types of knowledge. One is knowledge by understanding, by reading, and you come to the conclusion that Imam is different than everyone else. Some people unfortunately compare Imam Hussain Shahadat with other types of misfortunes, which are sad. But the traditions say, La yawm ki yawmik. No day is like your day. No day is like your own. Because Imam Hussain became Shaheed, and no one is like Imam Hussain. Look at, for example, 3 characteristics of the Imam. Who else has this? When you understand, we said you have to understand Imamat. It doesn't mean just Imam Hussain is a good person, Imam Hussain is the grandson of the Prophet. It means that Imam Hussain ﷺ is the Imam. That means Allah has ordained us to follow him. That's the first type of ma'rifah. Allah has commanded me to follow him. If Imam Hussain tells me to go into the fire, I will go to the fire. No questions asked. But if anybody else besides the infallible Imam says go to the fire, you do not have to go to the fire. The only individuals that is wajib to follow are the prophets and Imams. In this way, when you are confused, even when you're confused, you still have to follow them. 2, infallibility is the other. I know Imam Hussain does not make a mistake. I know Imam Hussain does not sin. This is different than a normal human being. He is sinless. He is ma'soom. Ayat al-Tatir says this. The verse of infallibility or taharat, 33 says this. 3, I know that he has knowledge from God, divine knowledge. So this is 3 main differences of imamat. I have to know imam means this. When you understand imam means this, you understand who they made shaheed. Cannot compare to anyone else. Because no one else was infallible, had knowledge from God, and at the end, had divine knowledge. So the first step in Ziyarat Ashura, again, I'll say it so you connect it. I want you next time you read Ziyarat Ashura, pay attention. فَأَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَنِي بِمَعْرِفَتِكُمْ. So the first thing is that Allah had gave me your knowledge. وَمَعْرِفَتِ, the second part, أَوْلِيَائِكُمْ. Some people think awliyaikum here might mean your walis. Awliyaikum, from the zuhur, what we understand, it already says ma'rifatukum. It says you ahlul bayt. Now it says awliyaikum, your friends, your loyalists. So Allah has given me ma'rifat and knowledge of your friends. Now this is very important because sometimes this for us is hard to have understanding, ma'rifat, and also to follow. Ma'rifat, the real meaning also here would mean not just to know, but to follow them, to respect them, to not disrespect them, to love the friends of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. This is another stage to reach ma'iyyat, togetherness with Imam Hussain. It's very unfortunate, some centers, we do not know this and understand this. We do not love one another because of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Sometimes we disrespect one another. This is the majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And we disrespect one another because he's not from my, for example, country. I don't know who he is. I don't need to respect them. Or because he's not from my town. Or he's from that town that my town hates, for example. There's a rivalry between the 2 towns. He's from the other town. We have to put all of this away because Imam Hussain alayhi salam, his message is for everyone. Muslim, not Muslim. Shia, Sunni, it's for everyone. Everyone, when we have these banners for Imam Hussain, Muharram and Safar, we have to understand this is his majlis. I have to be very careful how I treat others in it. I have to be very careful because we'll talk about later on, disrespecting the friends of Ahlul Bayt is also disrespecting Ahlul Bayt. because they are like our parents. Would anyone like, for example, if someone disrespected your child? No, you wouldn't like that because they disrespected you. So we have to be very careful how we treat one another. And I know it's hard because when Ashura happens or Muharram happens, there are many different types of people come. And we don't know who they are. But do we ever say, for example, I'm a khadim of you because you are the servant? This is just like, for example, the ziyarat of Imam Hussain. This is a place of visitation of Imam Hussain. Do we ever, for example, even take some of the shoes and organize it and say, these are the guests of Imam Hussain? Sayyid Ali Qadi Tabatabai, who was the teacher of Ayatollah Bahjan, he would have roza and majlis for Imam Hussain and would clean the shoes. Clean the shoes. Ayatollah Khoi, they say, would go into his majlis and he would be afraid. He did not want Ayatollah Qadi Tabatabai to clean his shoes. He would put his shoes with himself, his slippers with himself, so that the scholar would not clean his shoes. This is the respect that right now you have, because you're a guest of Imam Hussain. I should be very afraid to talk to you right now and to disrespect you. Usually I should be that with any human, with, of course, believers. But especially during this time, I should be very careful of how we treat another. There's this popular story that some of those on the pulpit, they say, it is the story of Ali ibn Yaqtin. I don't know, has anyone here heard of one of the companions of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam by Ali ibn Yaqtin? You've heard of his name. What was he popular for? That he worked in the Abbasid government. He worked under Harun, for example. But he worked secretly. They didn't know. He was a good, very sincere companion of Imam Kadhim alayhi salam. That sometimes it says that Imam Kadhim would spend lots of time making dua for Ali ibn Yaqtin. Very good companion. It is said that he told him, Ali ibn Yaqtin, have this job, have this, position. He was a wazir. He was a minister of Harun. He said, have this position, and help the Shia, help the followers of Ali Muhammad. I will grant you three things. Help whoever comes that is Shia, help them out. But I will grant you three things. I will grant you protection from poverty. You will never be poor. 2, I will protect you from the imprisonment. You'll never be in prison. 3, I will protect you from the safe and sword of Harun. Be kind to the Shia. This is how much Imam Kadhim loves you, the likes of you. It doesn't say the special, for example. Shia says the followers of Ali Muhammad, those that love them. This is how much Imam cares. This is help them out. Help them out, and I will give you these three things. So they say once a person came from his name is Ibrahim al-Jammal. He came all the way to Baghdad, which was the Khilafat was there, and he did not get what he wanted resolved. Ali ibn Yaqtin did not respect him the way that, for example, this promise was. They were supposed to take care of him, respect him. So Ali ibn Yaqtin, even though he's one of the very top companions of Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, he comes to Imam Kadhim after performing Hajj that same year. He comes, and the Imam basically does not give him much respect either. The Imam doesn't show him much attention. And he points out basically that you have disrespected one of our Shia. You have disrespected him. I don't want basically to talk to you in this way. But sometimes we read these traditions, we get very saddened that, God forbid, maybe because of my behavior, Ahlul Bayt, they don't want to invite me as much. They don't want to give me attention because I have been upset. Maybe a lot of times when you go to ziyarat, you have to be very careful. What do you say to your neighbors? And the best thing is not to even talk if you can. Not even to talk much, because in the trip you're going to say something. Not to disrespect the zawar of Imam Rida, Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So therefore he knows. He goes all the way to Ibrahim al-Jammal, asks for apologies, and even says that he even asked him to take his foot and put it on his face. Take your foot and put it on my face. I've disrespected you. I want you to do this to me. Then he goes back to Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, and Imam Kadhim alayhi salam shows him more respect than before. More respect than before. Do you see how sensitive the Imams are when it comes to us? That when you disrespect someone, when you are cruel to someone, sometimes your surprise centers. They say, oh, children, for example, kick them out, get them out of here. What are they doing? Yes. Sometimes it is the speaker, the lecturer, people are hearing. Yes, you can put a program for them. But never kick someone out of the majlis of Imam Hussain. Or this person is old, they're saying this, they're saying that. Why do they do that? Why? Did you know that Allah protects us? Doesn't allow bala, calamity to fall upon us because of two groups of people. One are the young, the babies, the infants. The second are the old people. They protect us from bala. So you want to kick them out of the majlis of Allah? You want to kick them out of society? You want to kick the young ones out of society? Then wait for your punishment and bala to happen. They are the blessings of our community. It doesn't matter how old they are, what they say. You have to be tolerant. You have to come to yourself and say, I'm going to be at service. Yes, it doesn't mean now, as you or their attendees or can be, for example, rude or behave wrong to those that are volunteers. They didn't do any sin. Now that they're khadim of Imam Hussain doesn't mean you can hurt them or harm them or throw things at them. You shouldn't do that, of course, either. It goes both ways. But what I'm trying to say from the story and from Ziyarat Ashura, to have ma'iyyat with Imam Hussain alayhi salam, one of them is having ma'rifah of the awliya, your friends, your loyalists. You have to love them. Inni silmun liman salamakum. I'm at peace with whoever is at peace with you. So tonight it's getting a little bit long, we'll discuss a few ways how to be kinder with one another. There's a difference from niceness. Kind means to actually benefit them. The traditions have that when you meet each other, from Rasulullah, ilqa akhaka biwajhin mumbasit. Meet your brother with a joyful face. Like this. Right? Is this a good face, for example? Sometimes some people we just don't like. Some people we like, and then the other brother go like that. No, everyone. Smile, be happy with one another. This is the tradition. It doesn't say those that you love, they're your brothers. Come. They called Rasulullah, because of his tabassum, Allah, they would call him always, smiling. Because he would always, one of the characteristics, he would always smile at the people. If he was always going to frown, do you think people would gather around him and love him? If he always disrespected people, always would frown at them. No, Rasulullah had makarimul akhlaq. So 6 ways that we can help one another. Be kind. One is give others the benefit of the doubt. Give them benefit of the doubt. Sometimes you don't like someone because something is in your mind. They did this to me. They didn't invite me to this. Everyone else was invited. Why didn't they invite me? Well, maybe there was a reason. And it's no offense. Maybe their house didn't have enough space. Maybe there's another reason. Maybe, they had to invite this family member or something. Don't have a bad su'adhan with your brother or sister. Don't have bad assumptions about them. Put all that aside. You have to be in such a position that you're so elevated and close to Allah that your chest is so expanded that you're not going to do these childish acts. Oh, he didn't invite me. Sometimes someone doesn't say salam to you. Why do you think? They think go home. They didn't say salam to you. Why? What would put those negative assumptions aside? And I want everyone here to think positive of one another. To your brothers. Give them benefit of the doubt. 2, identify your biases. Sometimes you like someone, sometimes you don't like him. Ask yourself why I don't really like them. Maybe it's not from my city, for example. He doesn't speak the same language as me. Maybe I don't like that culture as much. That's wrong. Because Quran very beautifully says, Inna akramakum indallah atqakum. The best of you is he who has the most taqwa. If they have taqwa, that's fine. If maybe you don't like their clothes, maybe you don't like the way they dress, And one of the scholars was saying if today the companions of Rasulullah would come to the masjid, like Salman and Abu Dhar, most of you, he says, wouldn't like them. If Salman and Abu Dhar came because of the way they dressed, because they were the poorest. And unfortunately today, sometimes we don't like to deal with poor people. We don't want to deal with people that don't have, for example, normal clothes or good clothes. So if today Salman or Abu Dhar would come, they're in such poverty that maybe we wouldn't, unless they told us as Salman, we say, who are you, brother? What's going on? What? Maybe you came to the wrong masjid, or maybe you want help, or now the right? So we have to be very careful not to treat others from their financial status. So put away that bias. The third, and we'll be wrapping it up, practice gratitude. These are some steps that I was looking. Practice gratitude. Help yourself be kinder to a person. Practice it. So, this act of kindness needs practice. When I go to, for example, a store, maybe I have someone else go in front of me. Maybe I open the door for somebody else. When I come to the masjid, for example, when I see, if somebody needs a torba more, I give them to him. Somebody needs water, someone needs food, I get him food for once. Don't always just get food for Hajara, get food for others. It's okay. Or sometimes Hajara doesn't even get food, for example. No, usually I do. Start with self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. If you want to be kind to others, help yourself. Make sure, for example, you sleep well. Before you come to the masjid, you're fed well, you sleep well, so you don't snap at people. Fifth, treat others how you want to be treated. The golden rule. You want to be treated with respect. You don't want anyone else to do that. Do that the same with them. And therefore, these will help us have that togetherness with Imam Hussain alayhi salam, because we said, and I'll repeat the line in Ziyat Ashura, فَأَسْأَلُ اللَّهِ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَنِي بِمَعْرَفَتِكُمْ. Allah bless me with the ma'rafat of Imams and ma'rafat awliyakum, and knowing your friends, loving your friends, having ma'rafat of them, and having bara'ah, then and yaj'alani ma'akum fi dunya wal akhirah, then I will be with you in dunya and akhirah. So I have to be very careful. Hopefully, and we can practice this, and we can be very good brothers and sisters with one another, be compassionate with one another, and very important, be tolerant with one another. If somebody says something to me, I don't snap at them, I have patience, and inshallah Allah will reward us. Let's dim the lights and talk about some of the musibat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We said that love of Imam Hussain is extremely powerful. Many miracles. And you don't need to be Iraqi to know this, Iranian to be this, Lebanese to know this, Khaliji to know this, Pakistani, Indian, Desi to know this, American, European to know this. Everyone of all cultures know that the shrine of Imam Hussain is a place of miracles. Everyone knows this. You know that Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, they perform karamat, meaning miraculous acts come from their shrines, from remembering them, from their majlis. How many people we've heard shafa happen, healing happen? How many do we know had problems and they solved their problems? Personally, how many problems did you have yourself that you get from Imam Hussain? You get it resolved from Imam Hussain. It's a place of miracles. Sheikh Abbas Qumi's son by the name of Sheikh Ali Muhaddis Sadeh was the son of Sheikh Abbas Qumi, Sahib Mafatih al-Jannah. He is diagnosed with a disease of the throat where he cannot talk. His doctor tells him, do not talk, do not speak. I know you have to pray, but that's the only wording I want you to give, the only speech that I want you to give. So he becomes afraid. And he says, it's about 60, 70 years ago, he's afraid, and he says, okay, I will not talk anymore. Doctor tells him, do you want water? You write it down on a piece of paper. So now he's stuck for months without talking. And now Shahr Ramadan comes. This is in the book of Karamatul Husayniyah. this karamat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He comes and he's resting one afternoon and he's saddened and cries and cries. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam says, Shahr Ramadan, I cannot talk, I'm a shaykh. I recite for you, I do rosa for you. How can I not talk for you? What am I going to do? And he has this dream that's written in this book. He has a dream that Imam Hussain alayhi salam comes and visits him and asks, basically, from what they say in this dream, asks him to recite for his daughter Ruqayya, recite for my little daughter. He doesn't know how, is afraid. Because how could you recite the musibah and calamity of a 3-4-year-old daughter in front of the father? But he says, ask your brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law begins to recite. Some say he recites this poetry. Some of it is, Farsi. دست عدو بزرگتر از چهره من است. یک ضربه زد کبود شده هر دو گونه. Meaning that the face, the hand, how small is the face of a 3-4-year-old? This is how small it is. This small. But how big is the hand of a Yazidi, for example, soldier or warrior? How large is it? It says the hand of the Yazidi, the hand of the enemy is larger than my face. This is from Lady Ruqayya, 3-4-year-old. When he hit me, what happens? I ask you, I apologize. What happens when a large hand hits the face of a tiny innocent face? It hits both sides. The poet says both sides of it become bruised. With one hit, both sides become bruised. See, Imam Hussain began to cry for this. And I was crying when I heard this. I heard the rosa of Lady Ruqayya. I woke up and I was upset at my family members. Why did you wake me up? I was with Imam Hussain. Why did you wake me up? And I knew that Imam Hussain gave my shafa, because in the dream he said, recite for Lady Ruqayya, get your shafa, you get your... I went back to the doctor. The doctor examined me. And look, this is about 60, 70 years ago in the book, and says that your throat looks perfectly normal. What happened? And I told him this dream. I told him that Imam Hussain asked to cry for Lady Ruqayya and your throat will be cured. The doctor, he said his pen fell. His pen fell there and he began to cry for Lady Ruqayya. This is some of the musibat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and this family, this caravan that is from now going towards Kufa. From Kufa we'll be going to Sham, and soon this innocent Lady Ruqayya will be buried in the dark dungeons of Sham. Inna lillahi inna ilayhi raji'un. Ya Allah, we ask you, because of these holy names, give us inshallah ma'rifat of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Give us ma'rifat of Rasulullah inshallah. Give us ma'rifat of Allah yourself inshallah. Ya Allah, cure all of those that are sick. Give protection to all of those that need protection, especially in Gaza inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you to have mercy upon our deceased and to expedite the return of Imam al-Zaman and make us of the true awliya and the friends and loyalists of the Imam, and to make us with Imam Hussain in the dunya and the akhirat with the salawat inshallah.